Hello art fans, this is Scott Thompson Art. I am your host, Scott Thompson, and in this session we're going to talk a little bit about supplies in terms of what you need to buy, what you can use, and aside from anything, just not breaking the bank on art supplies. It's completely unnecessary. I've done a lot of trial and error in my lifetime in terms of paints and canvases and brushes, and I will sort of streamline this process for you and let you know what works and what doesn't work. Now, this is just my opinion. Other artists prefer to use different things, but for this class, I'll just focus on the supplies which I like to use. So we've got up here on the screen, we've got the Artist Acrylic Prime Cotton Red Label Canvas, the medium texture. The reason I like this is by Fredericks. The reason I like the medium texture canvas is because acrylic paint tends to sort of shrink and look flat. It does not have the textural qualities which oil paint has. So by using a medium texture canvas, we get sort of that three-dimensional effect because it's got such a heavy tooth and the paint tends to sit sort of up on the surface. Secondly, I like the Liquitex heavy body acrylic paint, and it's a really good paint. It dries sort of with a semi-gloss, semi-matte finish. The paint quality looks really good when it's dry. It tends to resemble oil paint more than any other acrylic paint that I have used. It doesn't look like plastic when it dries. It's very workable. You can rework it. And it's just a really good paint. It's been on the market for years. They have sort of a Liquitex, I think, makes what they call a basics, which is a student grade. And they make other grades of paint. They have sort of they have a fluid brand, but I like the heavy body because I just like the thickness of the paint in terms of just, paint quality. And then finally we have the Winsor & Newton Artist Synthetic Hog Hair or actual hog hair brush. I like this brush because I'm sort of a loose painter and you can move the paint around easy with the brush. The real fine detail brushes, I have a few of those, but those are mainly for the detailed work. But preferably I enjoy the hog hair or the synthetic hog hair brushes. Okay, with that being said, let's talk about a couple other surfaces that you can paint on. So let me move these out of the way. And we'll talk about the Masonite panel. So this is what the Masonite panel looks like unprimed. You can usually find these at art supply stores. You can also find ones that are pre-primed with gesso. I don't like those. They don't have enough tooth. So the best thing to do is pick up a bottle of Liquitex gesso and another one of those sort of larger hog hair brushes, and you can gesso those panels. And you get a little bit more tooth and a little bit better quality panel when you do your own gessoing. And so I will do a little demo to add to this series and show you how to gesso panels and how to make them work where you get really a good result. So that's what the panel looks like unprimed and ungessoed. Once it's gessoed, it sort of has this quality to it. So you can see the textural effects within the panel and the tooth. I try to apply layers of it in sort of a thin fashion, watered down fashion, just build them up, and therefore you avoid that plastic slick, smooth surface with your panels. Okay, in terms of other type of panels, this is a canvas board panel. You can buy these also. Fredericks makes these as well. They come in many different sizes, and these are wonderful for just practice work. Working out ideas, and they're also fine for just painting. They're really a good panel. They're substantial, and it's just a really good surface, and it's a really good quality. I think you can get a bundle of these for really an inexpensive price, so I recommend those as well. And finally, if you just want to paint on a linen surface, Fredericks makes a line of linen canvas boards or linen canvases. These are archival linen, and what you want to look for when you're using acrylic paint is the small print down here at the bottom where it says acrylic titanium priming. You want acrylic primed linen canvas panels. If you get oil prime, then the acrylic paint is going to bead up, it's not going to adhere right, and over time the paint will peel off. So always look for the acrylic primed panels, and therefore those will be the best for the use in terms of using acrylic paints. So speaking of paints, I said I like the Liquitex brand of paint, and it's a really good heavy body acrylic and it holds up really well. I'm going to show you the palette I use. First of all, I use titanium white, I use ultramarine blue, the green shade. It comes in a green or red shade, but I prefer the green shade. I use cadmium orange, I use cad red light, and I use cad yellow medium. And finally, I will pick up a tube of Viridian, and that way that's used for my night scenes and also transforming my paintings. Well, actually what it can do, you can mix the Viridian with the ultramarine blue, and it gives you more of a cobalt blue or a little bit different of a light blue. And so these are the paints that I use. Now, you can use all types of palettes, but the most important thing in my opinion is to limit your palette. So when we're looking at these paints right here, we basically see that I have a blue, a red, which is cad red light, and a yellow medium. So I have my primary colors involved in this palette, and of course I have the cad orange, and then I have the Viridian. In order to get like a black or a dark color, I would mix the cad orange with the blue, and that'll give me a real deep dark color that's not a black. Normally black is a real dominant color. It's real heavy on, it holds a lot of weight and it's very heavy on the canvas, and sometimes it outweighs everything else that you're doing. It sort of overwhelms everything else on your painting surface and within your painting. So I try to avoid the black. However, with that being said, another palette I enjoy using is, let's take these away. I really enjoy, for a limited palette painting, if you're just starting to learn how to paint portraits, I'm really a huge fan of the Zorn palette, which was white, ivory black, yellow ochre, yellow oxide, and cad red light. This is a great starter palette for mixing flesh tones of any complexion. And Andrew Zorn, if you want more information on him, just go to YouTube and you can Google Andrew Zorn or type in painting with the Zorn palette, and you'll get enough information regarding him, and it's just a really simple palette. So the bottom line is, for me as an artist, to keep things uncomplicated and to simplify the painting process, I highly encourage you to limit your palette and really focus a lot on color mixing. You're going to do a lot more mixing, but in the long run, your painting is going to be much more cohesive, and it's going to be easier to work out, your value ranges and your color combinations within the painting. All right, so let's take these off. And I mentioned the brushes, the hog hair synthetic brushes, which are really good. Palette. So this is the Masterson's Stay Wet palette. This comes in different sizes. It comes in, I think, an 8x10, like about a 9x12, and I think a 12x16. It all depends on the size of painting that you're doing. For a little bit bigger paintings, sometimes I like the big 12x16 because I mix up a lot of paint. And when I move into my color mixing demos, then you'll understand why I kind of like the bigger palette. But it's called the Masterson Stay Wet palette. And when you open it up, you have a piece of paper which stays damp, along with a sponge behind it. Here is the sponge right here. And they make a special brand of paper to go with the palettes. Now, when using the Stay Wet palette, I encourage you to dampen the sponge, but don't saturate it, because then when you put your color on there and you start mixing your color on the paper, then what will happen is it'll absorb way too much water, your paint will become thin, and it will not be very workable. So the Stay Wet palette is a very good little invention or trick to keep your acrylics mobile and working, so they don't dry out on you. It makes your paint, it makes the painting process a lot easier. So you can pick up the palette and the sponges and the paper all together within the same section of your local art supply store. Finally, sometimes lighting can be a problem, and you want your painting to, when you're working on a painting, you want to have the correct lighting. I've done paintings before under a really warm light, and I've taken them outside, and all of my color values and my ranges are completely off in terms of what I'm doing. So you want sort of a daylight light. If you can paint outside, that's even more preferable, or either a nice big window where your easel is set up and have that natural light come spill in. But if you're painting at night, I like these little Mighty Bright book lights, and you can get them that plug in, you get them that can run on batteries, but they sort of will help you and aid in your color correction in terms of your lighting. And then finally, you'll need a good pencil, a kneaded eraser, and perhaps a pencil sharpener. And of course, other little items, roll of paper towels, paper cups, and water. And that's all you would need to begin the painting process. Very simple supplies, very inexpensive. Limit your palette, 2 or 3 brushes. I think the brushes that I like are, let's see, I like a size 1 right there, and I like a size 4 right there. And if you're looking for just a little fine brush, just go to like the watercolor section. You can get one of these little synthetics, and those are size 1 also, and those make really good, very durable brushes. So thank you for tuning in to this supply segment, and I hope to see you for other segments.